Welcome to Drop the Act, brought to you by Performing Perfectly. I'm your host, Chris Key, and this is episode 2 of season 2. And today we're speaking to someone whose motto is, if not you, then who? It's Richard Wallace, and he's the CEO and co-founder of the Liverpool Media Academy. Afternoon, Richard. Great to see you.
And you, Chris?
You're testing out the power of our noise-cancelling microphones today because we're in the amazing surroundings of LMA, which is Liverpool Media Academy, which you are co-founder and CEO of. Before we sort of look into your business career, do you want to tell us a little bit about LMA, how it started and why it started?
Yeah, absolutely. So LMA we founded in 2009 and really arrived from, we believed there was a different way to train people to make them ready for industry. I never went to university, but my kind of background of forming and film and TV production, we really struggled. We had relatively small budgets and we obviously needed to hit the ground running with people who were going to add value to the production, and it was a challenge. So we kind of felt, well, there must be a way. So we developed LMA really to have a pipeline of talent to the productions that we were making and involved in. And we fell in love with education. We didn't realise it was going to be as emotionally rewarding. And I really believe that, it's important to create environments, and I think that's the biggest thing. It's not the qualification, it's not anything else. It's about the environment that allows people to grow. And shall we say, we believe that LMA is more of a agricultural model than an industrial model, and allow an environment for whatever course people are on, that it is an organism and they can grow and they can develop, as we all do, at different paces, different speeds. And we put the sunshine in the sky and people can flourish,
I mean, we're in the what is it, the Met Quarter?
Met Quarter, yeah.
Met Quarter here, right in the centre of Liverpool. It's amazing facilities here, and I can hear the buzzing of students outside having a coffee. You can hear dance classes going on around you. It seems that LMA sort of ticks a lot of boxes for all across the sector of the media and the arts. How quickly did you add all of this, or has this been growing across? Did you start with a small goal and then it grew from there, or did you sort of hit the ground running and go, no, this is what we want here?
We always believed that we didn't want to be kind of one discipline, shall we say. We wanted to be a wider artistic institution. And because I believe that, to stay employed, that collaboration really is what is going to give people longevity in their careers, So it wasn't just only having actors or only having musicians. They should work together. They will work together at some point throughout their career. Filmmakers will be working with dancers. So for me, it made sense that the wider sort of artistic, creative sector start their journeys together as well. So whilst we started with obviously fewer numbers, we originally only started with a couple of courses, but we expanded that. But we always had the vision to have a portfolio of courses that can complement each other, and as I say, unlock those network opportunities along their training that then took them into industry together as well.
We'll come back to LMA in more detail. I mean, I haven't known you for very long. I've passed across a few times with work and with LMA. So, of course, I try and do a little bit of research into you. And as I've discovered, you do have your fingers in a few pies. But I don't know how it all started. So, take us back to you mentioned television. I think you worked for Mersey TV for a while. Is that
a short stint there?
A short stint in Mersey Television. My brother worked at Mersey TV as well. We've never spoken about that. But where did you start, and what was your journey into business, and when did you take the plunge to go, do you know what, I can do this myself?
Well, my kind of official journey into business, I've always been involved in business, from literally when I was in school. But, I think I'm very fortunate that I came from a family of can do, will do. And that doesn't mean that they were incredibly successful. But, we never want to live in regret. So, from my own dad, my grandparents, people have always given it a go. That was it. Give it a go. Find something you want to do. Give it a go. If you enjoy doing it, stick with it. If you don't enjoy it, pivot. Do something else. Don't stick on something that you don't believe in. Life is too short, So I've always came from that. I've came from an artistic, creative family that both parents were both singers and going back in the day of to the 60s and so on and so forth. My eldest brother is a filmmaker. So, but we've always believed in, as I say, work hard, do something they want to do, create opportunity, and always say yes.
And along the way, it's never straightforward in business. There must have been times where you've had setbacks. How do you navigate those? Maybe you could give me an example of getting to this point where you've had those setbacks and how you've had to work your way through them.
Lots and lots of setbacks, but I think sometimes, whether it be businesses, I believe successful business people are creative thinkers. And that's why I refer to as being artistic. What I'm super proud of here at LMA is that we also develop creative thinkers in their relevant disciplines, but creative thinkers who can problem solve, who know how to collaborate, who have an opinion on things. And I think, like all of us, sometimes your best thinking is born out of the restrictions that are around you, that you're underfunded, you haven't got enough money, and you've got to think quickly, you've got to pivot, you've got to be creative in how you're going to approach something. Lots of failures, lots of, ideas that maybe, as I say, for all those reasons that I wasn't educated within business and didn't necessarily understand, the lack of funding may end up leading in disaster, and so on and so forth. So there's been a real sort of life apprenticeship along the way within business. But I think we've managed to navigate and always managed to keep good company, and always had sort of pioneers that we've aspired to, and never really believed that we've made it, never believed, oh, we're okay now. It's always wanted to go, how can we improve? Always self-reflect on wanting to improve, whether it's what the business is currently doing, whether it's the team that we've got, which is amazing, but how can we improve their lives, then improves the business's life. And always trying to sort of triangulate things as well. And, some of the people that I've been fortunate to then eventually go into business have been through chance encounters, A couple of my partners now, a guy called Sir Terry Leahy and Bill Currie, a complete chance encounter of me meeting those guys. And within 20 minutes of spending time together, got on really well. I didn't intentionally try to impress them. I didn't know who they were when I first met them. And then we exchanged numbers, and the rest is history, But I was sort of, dare I say, humble enough, I suppose, to kind of, rather than portray that I had all the answers, I was okay to say, I need some help, I need some advice, I need some guidance, would you mind? The worst thing that someone can say is no.
I think that's important, isn't it? Just to know, certainly from my profession, I can direct a show, but I'm going to need a musical supervisor, I'm going to need a choreographer, I'm going to need a lighting designer, I'm going to need the sound. I can't do all of that. And putting that important team around you is so important. So you've mentioned chance encounters, but what else are you looking for with your leaders, the people who are leading LMA, both, let's say you've got Liverpool, you've also got the London campus as well. How do you identify those people? What's important for you when you're recruiting?
I think that when you go to market and you're trying to recruit, naturally in someone's CV is their sort of technical abilities, shall we say, X qualification, X this, X that. But for me, it's about personality, it's about energy, it's about having inquisitive individuals around you who want to improve, of going to challenge, going to stretch, going to reflect. And in that DNA of them as a human being, we all make mistakes. That's not an issue whatsoever. But I've got a hunger to want to improve what they're doing and improve the lives of them around them.
And there's obviously a real culture here at LMA. You can sense it. It's one of those buildings that when you're around, you're in, you can sense from the staff that they seem to enjoy working here. You can sense from the students that they're having fun here. How important has sort of building that culture and maintaining it, and also implementing that culture then across to the London campus as well. How's that been for you?
Nothing comes easy. So, I can't sit here and say, oh, it was a breeze. It really isn't. It takes a lot of upfront work, a lot of pre-planning, a lot of investing in people. trying to upskill people. I think trying to share information, or as much information as you can, without overloading people. So people have got clear visibility of the direction of travel that the business is going, the business is thinking that it wants to go to, how it's going to achieve, what opportunities lie ahead, what risks are ahead for us all. We're all in it together, and allowing them to have a voice to inform, whether it be within their own department, whether it be within their campus or the entire business. It might, in their head, might be a crazy small suggestion, but 100 crazy small suggestions have a massive positive impact on the business. So to allow an environment that people feel they can speak up.
You mentioned that you wanted to do things differently. We know that the arts is a saturated industry in many ways. There's so many colleges and schools out there, and some do it better than others. How important was it for you to say we're different, and how do you market that? How do you pull your students in and say, look, this is the place to come to because we're not the norm?
Well, I think we recruit individuals, so everyone who comes to us has got different dreams, different aspirations. That's healthy. And we really, from first time when they come to an open day, we're really proud to say that. Believe in yourself, believe in your own dreams. It's okay. I think what we also do is maybe open their minds, understandably. Students come to us when they're 17, 18 years of age. These are industries that they're going into. They don't necessarily think that at the beginning, but behind that killer lead vocal that we've all just give a standing ovation to is 300 people on that particular show. So it's opening their mind that these are industries, there is opportunities, but we embed a real thick lane of smart skills at LMA, and those smart skills are be nice, be humble, collaborate with people, network with people, have really good communication skills with people, and have a work ethic. And I think whether people graduate from LMA and go to be the lead role on Broadway, #1 recording artist, a top film director, that isn't the barometer of success. Feel fulfilled. Feel fulfilled in whatever you do. We believe that all the skills, all the experiences that they receive in the 3 years they're with us are transferable into any industry.
2008, did you say that this?
2009.
2009.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're obviously looking at how you scale this beast, which is LMA. How you've got the London campus.
Mm-hmm.
How do you plan scaling and keep sort of the core values at heart? How do you stay in control of it? Again, is that down to the trust of the people that you bring in? And what's your sort of planning on a scaling journey?
Well, we obviously plan, and we'll sort of have the mid long term goals, and then, as I say, you kind of look at opportunities and risks and balance them out. But we're in the people business, so this business is only as good as the team that are involved on departmentally, by campus, or as I say, globally. And all the things I said earlier on about investing in those people in time, in effort, I think it's really important to stay in tune with your, dare I say, customers, in our case, our students. And we have lots of formal approaches that we do that through, your relevant sort of societies and, student panels and so on and so forth, and your traditional questionnaires and various things. But it's about walking in the classes and looking in the whites of those students' eyes, engaging, are they happy? Why aren't they happy? Stopping someone on the mile in the kitchen space. How's your course going? What are you up to? Watching their performances, watching their films, and triangulating it all back. And that's not just me, that's the entire team. We want the tech team to understand what the curriculum team are doing. We want the curriculum team to understand the tech team and value what each other are doing. That actually, without one department, the business would fall down. So we have to respect and complement each other in what we're doing.
You mentioned chance encounters. We should mention Robbie Williams, which I believe was a chance encounter, and he is now a stakeholder at LMA. How much of a game changer was that? And was it needed at that point, that it needed that boost, and he provided something different?
I think, we on reflection, we were obviously flattered. You got a global superstar who says, hey, I think LMA is amazing. How can I get involved? But in the end, it's a commercial deal. Let's not make no bones about that. Rob is genuinely passionate about the arts and about next generation of talent. And that was what was super important for us. It's not whether it's a superstar or not. Do we share the same values? And we do, And yeah, it's very difficult to say whether it was a big game changer. It obviously doesn't hurt to have a global superstar attached. But LMA isn't a fame school. This is about creating people and having a positive impact on them for the rest of their lives. And hopefully in the industries that we're training them in, it's not making them famous overnight and then we all forget about them in 6 months' time,
There's, as I've mentioned, there's great facilities here, and I was part of the LMU, the UFest, which was an amazing industry event for all of your students to come and see workshops, be part of workshops from every side of the arts. It was there was a fairground in the main hall. There were great acts. There must have been a massive amount of money spent on that. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but I suppose my question is around, and just looking at the facilities here, how do you balance that profitability against providing the students with these wonderful opportunities?
Well, I think you have to reinvest all the time, whether that be in your estate, whether that be in your team, your people, or whether that be in your ideas. And I think, Youth Festival is a great example. We always, and we try to tell all of our students, think bigger. Always think bigger. That's what we've always said. Youth Festival, the name Youth Festival came from a saying that we've always had, if not you, then who? Somebody has to be the next. Why not? And you're not, Robbie Williams wasn't born a global superstar. Adele wasn't born a global superstar. You grow into that, and yes, talent, yes, a big slice of luck, which we all have along the way, but that work ethic and all the other skills that I mentioned, that actually time and time again, people will work with you because you are professional, you're adaptable, you're humble, there's lots of other reasons why you may get the first job, but what gets you the second, the third job. So Youth Festival is a big idea, and again, the entire team work incredibly hard to make it happen. But it's all about servicing our students. That's what we're here to do, is to service it. It's an absolute pleasure for us. Yes, it makes it a sustainable business moving forward. It allows us to reinvest. By us reinvesting in our campus and in our students, we're reinvesting in the arts. And that's the way we see it. We're in love with what we do. That's the reality. And it's not going away. We are all addicted to content, whether that be in live form, whether that be through social media, whether it be through streaming platforms. It's not going away. So you mentioned, obviously, it's possibly saturated in some ways. But actually, the opportunities are greater than ever before. When I was, and you were a lad, Chris, similar age.
Many years ago.
We had 3 channels, then it went, wow, there's 4, then there's 5.
Yeah.
There's now hundreds.
Yeah.
And podcasts and audiobooks and the whole games industry, and, how we're consuming is vast now. So there's lots of opportunity. But you've got to be talented, and you've got to work hard, and you've got to want to tell stories. And that's what it's all about, whether you're the performer, the writer, the director. We're all in the business of telling stories.
I feel like I should say at this point, because performing perfectly, we talk about, we bring our world of theatre into your business. And, everyone who's listened to the podcast or has worked with Performing Perfectly will know that my background is theatre. But everything you're saying, I don't want people to think, it's another arts theatre, because everything you're saying applies to business. Even the way you're taking care of your students, the way you're listening to what they want, listening to your staff, evolving, growing. It feels like it's a business model that you can just lift and put into any walk of life.
It is. And I think, there's people often sort of overly complicate things, but the reality is all businesses are about the people that we all play our little part, we're all the little cogs in the overall business. And I think if people aren't empowered by what they're doing, why they're doing it, and I'm not saying every day they want to rush home to tell their partner, guess what we've done today, but you should have some moments throughout your week, throughout your month, throughout your year that you go home and say those things. And that's because the business is also telling you you're valued, You're valued in what you do, and look at the positive impact you're having on that one person, that 10 people, those customers, whatever it may be. So for me, communication is really important around the business of, as I say, what's happening, celebrating what you're doing, but also not shy away from the challenges ahead. And I think that's also, and I think when people are informed, they're on that journey with you. And then when you need to dig a bit deeper, roll the sleeves up, work a bit harder, put that extra hour or two in, people will, because they understand, you told me about these challenges. You didn't kid me. You told me what was good. You also said there were some challenges and where we need to improve. And I think if you're open, which is almost showing a level of vulnerability to the wider team, that's okay.
So an honesty, I suppose, an honesty in business, open communication, and looking at the language you use, and not saying something you can be called back on later going, well, hang on a minute, we didn't know anything about this.
Yeah.
How have people buy into people, don't they? And you've already mentioned 2 chance encounters where people saw something in you and wanted to work with you. How much have you had to think, maybe you haven't at all, you're a charming Liverpudlian, how much have you had to think about your communication style, how you communicate, and how much have you thought about how do we communicate the message of LMA? You mentioned social media, the way of communicating these days has completely shifted and changed as well. But at the end of the day, we do want to hear from a person as well. So I've asked a lot of questions in one ramble, but hopefully you can dissect that.
Well, I think on a personal note, you have to evolve and reflect, and it's a completely different thing. Again, we have lots and lots of staff here at LMA. I had me and my brother in a room, and that was it. It becomes very different, and some of those old habits still creep up on you, and they're maybe not fit for purpose now. So you've got to be conscious of going, actually, I shouldn't have said that. Actually, we shouldn't have done it that. Actually, we should have did a longer lead in. Maybe we should be a bit more patient, because now that ripple effect is you want 200 people to adapt, but you're still thinking there was only you 2 in a room, because you forget, oh no, that was 16 years ago. So, you've got to, again, but be honest about that. So I think evolve, grow. I think learn from the team that you bring in as well, of every person in the business I'll try to communicate with at some point about work, about their personal life, and get to understand them a bit more. But actually it isn't one size fits all, and it's not easy, and you don't always get it right, but you got to try. You can't just be it's my way or the highway, So I think it's having an appreciation for everyone, but continue to reflecting on yourself as well.
There's a lot of people who have family businesses. I mean, I work with my wife. You work with your brother. There's pros and cons to that, isn't there? And I suppose you've just acknowledged one yourself.
I've got my brother. I've got my sister. I've got my daughter. There are pros and cons, but I think a lot more pros than cons. You obviously overstep and sometimes overshare and maybe say things in a certain way that you wouldn't maybe say to someone else. However, you also get over things a lot quicker as well. And I think, certainly in the early days when things are really tough and you do need to be, doing 7 days a week, there's not a question about that, So we see it as a strength, not a weakness.
Yeah. And just sticking with communication, how has technology and social media, changed the way that you're now communicating either with your team or with your custom?
Yeah, well, with our custom, obviously, social media for 16, 17, 18-year-olds is huge. But I think even within social media, I think it's people now want authenticity. And I think that is into the team as well as our customers and potential customers. So it's about it. We've got so many stories to tell. We've got 2,500 students. Every one of them has got a story to tell. One person's story may resonate with future customers more than someone else, but ultimately we all look in and go, I could see myself in that person, in that story, in that backstory. That's a bit like me. That's a bit like my brother. That's a bit like my sister. So it's trying to get as many stories you can out there in an authentic way. And again, that has its challenges because there's so many stories to be told. And we also know that, sometimes the attention span of the recipients is pretty short. So you got to tell a story in a pretty short space of time to keep them engaged.
Do you think people are starting to see through the sort of Instagram versus reality thing, and we're sort of going around, not full circle, but as you said, it's more important to get to the heart of the person and hear the message rather than see something that people can go, well, hang on a minute.
Yeah, and there's still a place. And of course, you have to have your brand values and all those kind of more corporate-y identities, shall we say. But, in a business sense, you want to hear the stories of the people. You want to hear the curriculum team, the tech team, you want to hear the academic admin, you want to hear their stories and put names to faces. And we do lots of meet the tutors, meet the, sort of life in Liverpool, life in London, lots of events all the time, because it's not just, here's a wonderful prospectus, read that and all your answers. You will find, and it's not about that. It's the little nuances and the little, as I say, the quirkiness that is real.
That phrase leadership, I was going to say, what's your leadership style? But I mean, I'd love to know whether there's people that you've looked up to as leaders and seen the way you think it should be done, and also seen the way it shouldn't be done, and how have you taken that and evolved yourself as a leader, and what's important for you as a leader?
Yeah, lots of different people, and there's elements in different people that you go, I like the way they do that, I like the way they do that. I think what's sort of within the creative space, people are normally surprised that you have a level of business understanding. They think you can be creative or you're a business person. I think, and I'm told, that I'm fortunate enough to have developed both, shall we say. So maybe quite unique. But again, that's only because I'm sat in meetings all the time, whether it be on campus, whether it be external partners, stakeholders, and I'm sponging what they're saying, and I'm listening to what they're saying, and again, I'm inquisitive and then I'll go back and on the train, in the car, whatever it may be, reflect on why they've said that. That was interesting what they said. And I'll kind of regurgitate the conversation in my own head and then soundboard it off to other people. How can we take a snippet of that, and how can that, work for what we're trying to do as well? So lots of people, lots of different stories. I think, as I say, ultimately it's about respect and about, having an appreciation for the people that you work with. That to me is what it's about.
Yeah. Are the sort of mentors, is the people that you go to? Have you got people that you can go, I've got a question, I need to go, and there's people you trust who you can go and sort of...
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously within, I mentioned Bill and Terry as an example. They've been wonderful mentors whenever I needed to soundboard things off. But there's different levels and different scenarios, so I think people may not know it. Some of the mentors of the team that we've got, they don't know it, but I soundboard off and ask them a question. But it's a loaded question because I'm trying to understand their take on something, or their take on if something was to unravel in 6 months' time. So you sometimes paint scenarios that maybe exist, but just to soundboard, and test the temperature on things.
I love the idea. I was chatting to Ben, who's on a camera somewhere around here, who's on the Ambassadors Programme. That idea of mentorship, but also getting looking after the students once they leave. We know it's a precarious industry. We know it's difficult, but how important was it for you to put these things in place to go, actually, the learning doesn't finish after 3 years. We still want to be able to provide these opportunities for people to improve, people to learn, get better, and help them even more to get into the industry.
Yeah, it's vital. But it was super important for those guys who were going to become ambassadors, and that changes every year, to give them an opportunity to maybe see the other side, shall we say, and build up within the workplace another set of skills. But also they're the guys who our students can relate to. So again, it's that kind of stepping stone. And for me, it was also another way back into seeing through the eyes of our customers, but our ambassadors are on the sort of the employee side of the fence as well. You'll have some ideas, some suggestions as well of how we can improve things.
And it's, there's a lot of money involved in business. There's a lot of money, as you said, you're sort of thinking, planning ahead, looking, there's always risks. I mean, how do you manage that sort of mindset, that resilience? What drives you? What keeps you focused? And what makes you, I suppose, take those challenges with a positive mindset?
I think the drive is enjoy what you're doing. That's it, and I think for me personally, I always like to challenge myself. So we obviously started with LMA with in Liverpool. We start with 18 students. We now have 2,500 students. We're in 2 cities along the way, which we've not touched upon. But I then became a shareholder in a wider group called Galileo Global Education Group. So as well as LMA, we have another 71 institutions that we own and operate around the world, and again across the creative space. We now have business schools, we have medical schools. They were, again, different challenges. Yes, we're in the education space, but different challenges. Challenge yourself on a national scale, on an international scale, whether that be culturally, whether that be the terms of reference of legal entities vary on countries. Obviously, financial restrictions can vary in different countries. So for me, it's always about feeling that you're progressing and being challenged, and some days are very challenging. You're human. You have the odd day where you question, wow, am I doing things right here? Is it really? Am I in too deep? Should I have stepped away? Is it above me? And you still drift in and out of imposter syndrome. There's no two ways about that. And I haven't met anyone who's been incredibly successful who wouldn't admit to that, because you've not walked this path before. So, you will feel that, and it's okay to feel that. And going back to those mentors, that's why you need solid people around you, and not just at a professional level, in your own personal life as well. Again, very fortunate on my family life and my partner and my kids and whatever else. They understand it's a big piece of me. So you try not to take things home, but at times you do need a sounding board who aren't involved in the business, but can actually sometimes snap you out or maybe, give you that little loving arm that you need to go back in and go back into battle, shall we say.
And Galileo, you just reeled off a number of different industries, occupations, medical and what have you. Education. I worked in education very briefly on what was a BTEC course, and I was amazed with how much paperwork and everything else there was that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Are you looking at how we can? Is it always about how we can do this differently? How we can take? Because obviously medicine is medicine, but are you with something like Galileo? Do you try and take the same format as here and go, well, actually, let's break the mold. Let's find a different way of delivering.
100%. Absolutely, 100%. I think, again, it's very much, our global model is to make education accessible. So we have 300,000 students around the world, to make it accessible, to allow people to think differently. And again, I go back to the point of environments, creating an environment that it's okay to challenge, it's okay to stretch, it's okay to dream. That's okay. We don't just have to follow the textbook that was written 10 years ago. How do we write the next textbook? When we think back to, again, going back to our sort of sectors of Spotify and Netflix, these things didn't exist 15 years ago. Somebody had the idea, somebody put the work ethic in and created something that has changed people's lives. There will be another version of Spotify, Netflix, whatever it may be down the line. And that, for me, in the health sector, what's the next version of how we believe people can be healthier, how we can improve the well-being of individuals, how we can live longer, healthier and happier? Someone has to have those ideas, And
how do you define success for you? What is success? When do you say now I'm successful? This is success, or what's the goal?
For me, success is my happiness on a personal level, and going home and being happy and being able to sleep at night, and being a positive dad and a positive partner. That's my own success. I think when I sort of look into the business, the success is when I see the teams feeling that, and they're happy and their lives are moving forward, whether they're getting married, having their own kids, getting their own homes, going on the holidays they want to do. That's success. Be happy. That is it, you know. It's not about a better car, a bigger house. There's nothing wrong with those things. There's nothing wrong with people aspiring to want to improve those things around their lives, but that isn't the success. They're a byproduct of the success.
And if there were sort of young people listening to this with, you know, entrepreneurial minds, you know, what would your advice be to them? How would, you know, to set them on the sort of right path moving forwards? What would your sort of advice be?
Be brave, be hungry. You can do it. As I said earlier on, if not you, then who? Someone's going to do LMA and do it bigger and better than what we've ever done, and that's fine. I'd love to see that to happen. You know, people will do that, but be humble. Reach out for help. Have conversations. Ask as many people. Have as many sounding boards as you can around you. Don't just think you have all the answers, because none of us do.
And is there, I think, you know, just one sort of last bit of advice, Richard, is there sort of a motto or something you heard along the way you went, you know what, I'm going to sort of live my life by that, my business life by that? Or have you got a little bit of a nugget that you could leave us with?
Put me on the spot now, Chris.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you sort of just touched on it with Be Hungry, you know, and ask questions. But, you know, sometimes someone has this, I remember when so-and-so said.
I think, as I say, just be happy. Whatever you do, be happy. And if that is having your own business, be happy. If that is working in the local shop, be happy. You know, I think life is very, very short. You know, as they say, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's it. You know, pivot. Don't be afraid to pivot. It's okay.
And if people are listening and they want to get involved in LMA, I assume just a Google of LMA will get them
LMA,
there.
yeah, lma.ac.uk. If anyone's listening and wants to reach out to you guys and would like some help, for me to have a conversation with anyone, I'm more than happy to do that as well.
Brilliant. Richard, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Cheers.